How are you? Welcome to tonight's broadcast. It's Monday, and it's a sad day. It's a sad day for rock and roll. It's a sad day for punk rock. It's a sad day for glam and for alternative music and underground music. It's a sad day for music history for, a few reasons. First and foremost, David Johansen, the frontman and last surviving member, the sole surviving member of the New York Dolls, has shuffled loose his mortal coil. We found out he was really, really sick with cancer, probably when it was, when he was already far too gone. What frustrates me, though, about the GoFundMe that was sort of circulated for him was that it was accompanied by this picture of David in a hospital bed, which reminds me of a lyric actually from the New York Dolls, or a cover of the New York Dolls. And I just thought it was, I don't know who posted that or how that photo started circulating on the internet, but I found it to be, I don't know, kind of like it bummed me out. Like, I just felt like there were much better ways to sort of, amplify that David Joe was sick and needed support, and just showing a picture of him like that when there were so many pictures. I mean, David Johansen was sort of like he had this New York regality to him. You know what I mean? Like, he was, I didn't know David Johansen. I never met David Johansen, but just from, being a fan of his and his work and watching him in the media and just this, that, and the other, whatever profile he had, he had this swagger, just this real cool swagger about him. And I felt like seeing him in that hospital bed, like, sort of really disrupted that mystique. And it was so unnecessary. It was just unnecessary. I don't know. And I feel like there's a million better ways to remember him. And that's kind of like what we're going to do tonight. Although my tribute is like a tiny little, pin drop compared to some of the outpouring that's been online for David Johansen. David Johansen is also kind of a chameleon musically, going from, being the frontman of the Dolls to sort of doing like I don't know if you want to call it new wave or, punk, New York rock, new wave sort of David Johansen group, to becoming a lounge singer, Buster Poindexter, to doing David Joe and the Harry Smiths, I think they were called. And then second stint with the Dolls. I mean, man, and he put out a wonderful documentary. There was a great documentary about him. I don't know who made it. It was him in like the Buster Poindexter persona, but he had a great backing band, and he was playing. I got to find out the name of this documentary. Let me just search for this. I saw it on Showtime, and it was sublime. Yeah, it's called Personality Crisis, One Night Only, and you can watch it on Prime or on YouTube. There's a couple places you can see it. It's from 2022. And, this is how David Johansen should truly be remembered. This is what you should watch in order to pay respect to David Johansen. Yeah, it was it was directed by Martin Scorsese and David Tedeschi. I don't know that person. Of course, Martin Scorsese would have his paw prints all over it. The set was at a place called Cafe Carlisle. And it was released in 2022, but it was from January 2020. And it's marvelous. It's absolutely marvelous. And it's marvelous to see. He tells stories, and then he plays pieces, various songs. And then it cuts to interview footage of him. He's being interviewed by his daughter. It's sublime. It's sublime. And that's how David Johansen should be remembered, not being stuck in a hospital bed with a GoFundMe circulating. That kind of sucked. That bummed me out. But it's the end of an era, man. We now live in a reality where these legends, these giants, are slowly dying out, because that's what happens. We're not here forever, and we're all human, and we all leave. And so far, Every member of the MC5 is gone. All the Ramones are gone. All of the Heartbreakers are gone. And now all the New York Dolls are gone. And it's kind of amazing, too, when you look at someone like Iggy Pop, knock on wood, the king of the dogs, man. Iggy Pop endures, and it's a beautiful thing. God bless him for his. I mean, he's won. He won. He's 80. He's headlining a festival. I mean, God, what a friggin'. I mean, that guy should have been the first casualty, and yet somehow he's still out there and still knocking him dead. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I don't know where I was going with that. So, but we're here to just pay tribute to David Johansen and to sort of, I found a really great piece that I wanted to read here on the channel that I thought really sort of encapsulates the experience. I mean, there's a lot of books out there and there's a lot of, passages we could have read from, but this gentleman's experience in seeing the dolls and being there from the beginning really feels like a poignant way to sort of remember David Johansen, New York Dolls, just in terms of like how significant the New York Dolls legacy runs. You have to think about it like this. These guys were so far ahead of their time. 10 years later, every popular, heavy metal, glam metal, rock and roll band, whatever you want to call, would be doing exactly what the Dolls were doing 10 years prior, teasing up their hair, dressing like girls, wearing high heels and, writing, trying to write ballsy rock and roll. Obviously the Dolls were trying to just do, the Dolls were just a dangerous, rougher, raw version of the Rolling Stones from America. That's how I always kind of seen them. I think a lot of people, despite the fact that the Dolls are very much punk before it was punk, they're proto-punk. They are that thing before that thing had a name. Others would say, hey, the Dolls are just a rock and roll band, just like a straight up rock, like dirty, raw rock and roll, which is kind of like what punk rock is anyway. So it's, it's semantics. It's like whatever name you want to call it by, right? And that kind of thing. And that's what the Dolls were. And so, but, a decade later, the Dolls opened the door, not just for punk rock, not just for like what was going to happen in the New York City punk scene, but like just in every sort of echelon of alternative rock, from Morrissey to Guns N' Roses to, Nirvana to, just everywhere. The Ramones, like just all of it, man, all of it can kind of be traced back its lineage to the New York Dolls, the MC5, Iggy and the Stooges, and the Velvet Underground, And, of those bands, the Dolls came much later. But the Dolls start is kind of interesting because, they didn't have like a straight genesis. It wasn't just like they all got together and were like, we will be the Dolls. It sort of was various different combinations of the original members getting together and, doing this thing, doing that thing. One point, Johnny Thunders is fronting a band called Actress. And then there's another band that had Billy and Sylvain. And all of it was just sort of a pressure cooker. And the last piece, the linchpin that kind of put all of it into place, that really solidified everything, that sort of united Johnny Thunders, Sylvain, Billy, Marcia, whatever the fuck his name is, and Arthur Killer Kane, is David Johansen. Once they got David Johansen, they were the New York Dolls in 1971. You know what I mean? And obviously there were some other members. Ricky Rivets was part of the original incarnation of the Dolls. He was a founding member. They got their name from a doll hospital, like for dolls, like for dolls. Sylvain worked across the street from this place called the New York City Doll Hospital, I think it was called. And and they took their name. And before that, there was a proto version of the Dolls called the Dolls, and there were some early recordings with Ricky Rivets released called Dawn of the Dolls. And just so many. It's funny, they only put out 2 records, but there's so much bootleg live material out there. And even though like the classic lineup of the Dolls is Jerry Nolan, Johnny Thunders, Arthur Killer Kane, Sylvain, and David Johansen, there were so many members of the Dolls, and the nucleus of the Dolls was always David Johansen and Sylvain. Every single lineup featured these guys, which is kind of interesting when you look at when they came back in 2004, because you think, well, they had Arthur Killer Kane, but he died shortly after their initial reunion. Morrissey asked them to come back, and then he died. And then they became a working band again. They got Sammy Yaffa, and they got Steve Conti, and they went out and they put out 3 records. And those are great records, especially that first reunion one. One day it will please us to remember this. And you want to know something? It came true, because now they're all gone. And, I look back on that record and it does please me. It's a special record, but it's kind of amazing how through it all, it was always, David Johansen and Sylvain. They were the sort of the core. And obviously they couldn't have been the Dolls without Johnny Thunders, and they couldn't have been the Dolls without Jerry Nolan or Killer Kane. But, it was still a valid band, very valid reunion. In fact, the reunited New York Dolls, I've said this before, I can't think of a better reunion, maybe besides the Stooges. Although what's different about the Stooges is when the Stooges came back, none of the records they put out were good. The Weirdness was terrible. Ready to Die was terrible. That one good song, My Idea of Fun, I think is really a standout song. And the songs they did on Skull Ring, right? The Skull Ring album, the 4 songs that they did were better than what came out on the Weirdness, which is produced by Steve Albini. And then after Ron died, they got James Williamson. They did Ready to Die, and that's just it's all near unlistenable. I've tried listening to that record several times; it doesn't work. But the New York Dolls, all 3 records they put out are incredibly listenable. And they brought back Todd Rundgren to produce. He outlived everybody, man. Todd is still kicking. God bless him. Kind of crazy, kind of freaking crazy. So yeah, it's just, they're a gold standard, in my opinion, for what they're the gold standard for what a reunion of a band who's been broken up for 3 decades could be. And again, the Stooges were great live, but man, they could not write songs anymore. They just didn't sound good. They just weren't good, the songs, except for My Idea of Fun. Whereas the songwriting on 'Cause I Said So, Dancing Backward in High Heels, and particularly One Day It Will Please Us to Remember This, is just phenomenal, really phenomenal. And it's a testament to the nucleus of David Johansen and Sylvain, even though, Steve contributed some songs as well. And I think Sammy Yaffa contributed as well. Hanoi Rocks owes a huge debt to the Dolls, man. And here's the great, and before we're going to go to a break in a second, and then I'm going to read this incredible tribute and remembrance about the Dolls. But before we do that, I just want to say a great crime has been committed, truly. Not just to the New York Dolls, but also to the MC5. Here are 2 incredibly impactful, important, influential bands that are so synonymous with alternative rock and roll, and have egregiously been omitted from Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for years. And the fact that everybody had to die, maybe they're going to get inducted next year now, but the fact that everybody who was a part of this incredible band and contribution to the arts is no longer alive to witness the fruits and the acknowledgement of what they did. It's a shame. It's a dirty shame. And, fuck the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, man. Just really, what kind of institution is it really if they're not acknowledging that, if they're inducting Fish is getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but not the New York Dolls, not the MC5, not the Bad Brains. It's funny. They snubbed Kiss for years and years and years, and finally they let Kiss in, and I was very happy about that. Even though I'm not a giant fan of Kiss's music, to me, there are so many important factors. It's not just record sales, it's influence and impact, and the Dolls and the Kiss and the Dolls and MC5, these bands touched a lot of artists. And again, you think about how influential, say, the Ramones were, but there's no Ramones without the New York Dolls. You know what I mean? There's a lot of bands that don't exist without the New York Dolls to come first. Again, think about the hundreds. I mean, I don't know how many records were sold in the 80s from the hair, glam, metal, whatever. You have to imagine billions of records were sold and billions of dollars were made on a concept that you could say was almost singularly invented by the New York Dolls. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And they're all gone. And so I salute you, New York Dolls. I was lucky enough to see the New York Dolls live. I saw them open for the Stooges, who are headlining at Little Steven's Underground Rock Garage Festival. The top billing was the Stooges, the Strokes, and the New York Dolls. And in that order, it was the New York Dolls, and then the Strokes played, and then the Stooges played. And it was hard to see the Dolls from so far away, but I got to see them. I got to see them live, and I was so grateful. And they were great. They played great. And man, that was $20 to see the Stooges, the Dolls, the Strokes. I saw Bo Diddley that day. I saw the Ravenettes. I saw Nancy Sinatra, the Fuzz Tones, or maybe it was the Flesh Tones. I don't remember, one of those bands. Just so many great bands. And a lot of them are dead now. I don't know. Before we continue on, I just want to tell you about our quick sponsor, or I want to take a quick break to tell you about our sponsor, riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers is the official sponsor of the Frumess channel. We have a special deal running with Riot Stickers. You can get 1,000 stickers for $79 with free shipping. Is that insane, or is that insane? That's 7 cents per sticker. You go to riotstickers.com/Frumess. That's FRUMESS. And you want to get a sticker of David Johansen's face. You better check with his daughter and his estate first, but you want to get a sticker of David Johansen's beautiful Buster Poindexter mug to slap around your neighborhood. You go to riotstickers.com/Frumess. That's FRUMESS. Link is down in the description. You get 1,000 stickers for $79, and you just can't beat that. We will be right back after this quick break, and we will discuss this incredible, touching tribute to David Johansson and the New York Dolls.
We make stickers, banners, and buttons too, posters and promo cards. There's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality, quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support, great customer service, and so much more. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb.
And that is a promise. All right. So this is from a guy called Paul Zone. Paul Zone was around way back when, in the New York City heyday. He was in a band called The Fast with his two brothers, Mickey Zone, and God, what the hell's the name of the other Zone brother? I don't remember. God damn it. Paul Zone, Mickey Zone, and something with an M. something with an M. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But he was in that band. He was also in a band called Man to Man, produced by Peter Crowley, the world famous Peter Crowley of Max's Kansas City. And he was there at the beginning. He witnessed the Dolls at the dawn of the Dolls, and he has written. He knew the Dolls and was a part of the New York punk scene, and he wrote this incredible remembrance about the New York Dolls. And I want to read it here for you. This is from Paul Zone. This is from his Facebook. It's a public post. This is what Paul says. It's beautiful. It's a beautifully written remembrance, and I'm very grateful. Thank you, Paul, for posting this. You can't really explain how and why punk rock happened in New York City without tracing its roots to 1972 glitter rock, as glam rock was called back then, and the New York Dolls. Oh, yeah. Did I mention I was just 14 years old? Can you imagine being 14 and witnessing history like that? He says, I can't remember why I missed the New York Dolls show at the Diplomat Hotel early 1972. I do remember that my brothers Mickey, Mandy, so sorry, it was Mandy Zone, Mickey Zone, Mandy Zone, and Paul Zone. I do remember that my brothers Mickey and Mandy and I saw the 3-inch by 3-inch ad advertised in the Village Voice for that show. And for those of you who are too young to remember the Village Voice or don't know what the Village Voice was, I mean, that's how you found out what was going on, what was happening. You would go into the Voice and you'd look and you could circle or clip out, different things that were occurring in New York at that time. So the Village Voice for that show. And yeah, we could afford the $2.50 admission to get in. So it was cost you $2.50 to go see the Dolls in 1972. We couldn't help notice how fantastic they looked in their photo. After all, it was taken by Lee Blackchilders in Gail Higgins' boyfriend Ozzy's bedroom closet. I mean, this kind of insider knowledge is just amazing. I had the pleasure and fortune of knowing and meeting Lee Blackchilders at the very end of his life. I was personally chauffeuring him and Billy Rath to and fro at the behest of Peter Crowley for his Max's Kansas City reunions. And I drove Lee and myself in a car. I drove him to Fashion Week in New York City in 2010. And we had a wonderful conversation. And, I wish that I had interviewed him on tape and captured his stories. What I wouldn't give to interview him now. And he's gone. He's dead. You can't do that. Lee would go on to manage, the Heartbreakers. And he was involved with Wayne County, who later became Jane County. And just, he knew everybody, man. Paul says, we already had Alice, thinking Alice Cooper, Mark Bolan from T-Rex, and Bowie. But there was something different about the Dolls in that photo. That seems dangerously real and overtly original. 2 weeks later, we took the F train from Brooklyn into New York City. It was the Dolls' premiere solo show at the Mercer Arts Center, billed as every Tuesday night, the New York Dolls invite you to Beyond the Valley. Our initial descent into the underground was not only thrilling, it was a revelation. My brothers and I realized that we had finally found a place to fit in. It is just an amazing testimony, man. You got to look at this. This is like testimony. Paul says, at the Fillmore East and Academy of Music concerts during the Dirty Jeans post-Woodstock era of the late 60s, early 70s, my brothers and I would be part of a scattered handful of people making a statement by dressing flamboyantly like our favorite British acts. Walking into the Mercer and seeing everyone dressed like us was a real religious awakening, to say the least. We instantly knew that we had found the place where we wanted to be and the people we wanted to be around. David Johansen, Johnny Thunders, Sylvain, Arthur Kane, and Billy Mercer hit the small stage at about 2 a.m. and I got goosebumps. I knew this was something different. Now, I had previously said, when we talked about the fact that David Joe had died somewhere on this channel, This was dramatized. The Dolls playing at the Mercer Arts Center was dramatized in a show produced by Martin Scorsese on HBO called Vinyl, which I did not watch, but I did watch the clip of the New York Dolls performing Personality Crisis. And, it's sort of fictionalized what happens in the show. They play the song and the Mercer Arts Center crumbles under the loud vibration of their rock and roll. In reality, I believe the Mercer Arts Center was just knocked down. It was not fit for public consumption or something. It was not I don't know. But New York, NYU's Village campus now occupies where the Mercer Arts Center once was. I had that feeling at 14 years old in 1971, seeing Iggy painted silver with the Stooges at the Electric Circus in the East Village on St. Mark's Place after the Funhouse LP was released. Alice Cooper the same year at the Fillmore as an opening act supporting their Love It to Death LP. T-Rex promoting the Electric Warrior LP after Bang a Gong became a hit in America, and seeing Bowie in 1972, the first show ever in New York City at Carnegie Hall performing Ziggy Stardust. So he had been aware of all these other things, but this was different. So much in music and fashion has happened since then, and it's hard to explain what it's like when something happens for the first time and it has never happened before and you're excited to be there to witness it. I mean, what a statement. What a statement. And he was there. He was fucking there. The Mercer Arts Center was an entertainment complex with half a dozen different themed rooms that housed theater, music, and art, and a bar that looked like a scene out of the Clockwork Orange movie. I saw the Dolls at the Mercer Arts Center every Tuesday that summer and was introduced to the kaleidoscopic swirl of artists that made up the pre-punk New York underground. Teenage Lust, which featured Harold C. Black, another character I once had the pleasure of meeting, who became quite enamored with Facebook in his twilight years, and he's now gone, dead and gone. Queen Elizabeth, featuring Wayne County. Suicide, who billed themselves as punk music, the first New York group to ever do so. Ruby and the Rednecks, who used to play, I saw Ruby and the Rednecks twice at those Max's Kansas City reunions. I believe Ruby has since passed. I recorded one of her sets. The Harlots of 42nd Street, Eric Emerson and the Magic Tramps, who gave the New York Dolls their start as their opening act at Max's Kansas City. But none of them could compete with the Dolls. The style and the onstage attitude David Johansen, Johnny Thunders, Sylvain, Arthur Kane, and Billy Mercer brought to the stage was like nothing I had ever seen. The band had an amazing vision, and their early audiences loved them deeply. My brother and I followed the Dolls and saw every show from then on. It was not only to see their performances, but to be a part of the audience in the underground music scene. At Dolls shows in 1972, it was just like the punk shows of 1974 at CBGB and Max's. You knew everyone in the bands and everyone in the audience, 100 or so of us at most. And back then, that scene was so tiny and insulated that, yes, everybody in the band that was watching you play was made up of some other band, right? Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's so crazy when you think about it. The 1972 was a turning point, a brief window of time that defiantly set the course for the rest of my life. Over the next 2 years, in these audiences, I would get to meet my closest friends growing up. Debbie Harry and Chris Stein, Wayne County, Lee Childers, Lance Loud and Christian Hoffman, Joey, Dee Dee, Johnny, and Tommy, Arturo, and a lot more of the players now famous, infamous, and long forgotten unknowns. By 1974, with the glam scene winding down, it seemed like everyone was starting to form their own bands that developed into the New York scene that would later go on to be known as punk rock. Notice how he says that, because that original class of whatever, 1973, 74, 75, they were not punk in the same way that we think of punk. And Legs McNeil is, credited often as, coining that term punk rock. But again, as we heard, what's his face? Vega and Marty. whatever their names are, they were there saying it first, man. But it was he's saying eventually it would start to form their own bands and develop into the New York scene that would go on to be known as punk rock. But it was the Dolls and David Johansen's style as a lead singer, along with Johnny and Syl up front, that was the magic that started it all. Oh yeah, did I mention that I just happen to have my camera with me, Paul Zone? Now, he has a book called Playground, Growing Up in the New York Underground, and I'm going to put the link for you if you want to buy his book. Here's a link to his book. You can buy it right here. I'll put the link in the comments too. Check that out. That's on Amazon. That will load. And this is that picture taken by Lee Blackchilders. And here is a picture. That's Paul Zone. Or no, that might be Mickey or Mandy Zone. Sorry. That's not Paul Zone. That's Mickey or Mandy Zone with David Johansen. See if I could find something else. Then here's the guy who, I think that's him. Yeah. No, that's Mickey Zone. Sorry. That's his brother. They all kind of look alike because they're brothers. This is the guy right here. That's Paul Zone. This is a photo by Lee Blackchilders. And yeah. All right. Yeah, there's the link posted in there. I thought that was a beautifully touching tribute to, now that we've reached the end, we've gone back to look at the beginning of what the New York Dolls would become. And, like they would, they went through many changes. They put out the 2 records, self-titled and then Too Much Too Soon. And then they got managed. Malcolm McLaren took over as their manager and put them in red leather and made them tour around Florida. And, Arthur Kane, he cut his thumb from Connie Ramone. He was what she was very jealous and crazy. And, it's funny. I saw a video of the Dolls playing in England somewhere. Like, I think maybe it was the Old Grey Whistle Test or something. And I noticed that next to Killer Kane, there's somebody else playing bass. And I'm going, what's that about? Because why do they have 2 bass players? And I'm realizing it's probably because at that point he had his tendon had been cut. And he had problems playing the bass, and they had to have someone fill in maybe while he was convalescing or something. But eventually Killer Kane left and he was replaced. And then Jerry Nolan and Johnny Thunders left, supposedly, to go. They were dope sick and went back up north to get dope. And then they formed the Heartbreakers. And what's amazing about the Heartbreakers, when you read about the history, the Heartbreakers were larger than life. And part of that was the reputation that, Jerry Nolan and Johnny Thunders had the pedigree of being Dolls, and that made them what they were at that time. They were the Cat's Meow, and they were managed by Lee Childers. They formed with Richard Hell, of course, who then later formed the Voidoids when it didn't work out with the Heartbreakers. So, and Sylvain and David Joe, they continued on with a variety of lineups, and then eventually Sylvain left, and then David Johansen did his solo band, as we said, and then Sylvain joined him in that solo band, and then he turned to Buster Poindexter, and on it went. They left an incredible legacy, great records, and someday we'll do more deep dives into the Dolls. When the time is right. All I could say is I hope that they do get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, even though the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a sham for not having done so already. Why? Because they deserve it, even if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame doesn't deserve them. How about that? So that's all I got for you. One thing, please take a moment to like, share, subscribe. Check out the link that I pinned to the top. It's a documentary I made, Kuyashi Gonzo. Open it up in a new tab. Give it a watch. It's a documentary that's near and dear to my heart. So thank you so much. All right. Peace, hair grease, and we'll see you next time.